When people look at Eiza González today, they see glamour, red carpets, blockbuster films, international fame, and effortless beauty, but what most don't see is the quiet strength, heartbreak, discipline, and relentless ambition that shaped her into one of the most determined actresses of her generation. Because Eiza González was never just trying to be famous, she was fighting to prove that dreams born in Mexico could conquer Hollywood without losing their identity, and that journey began long before flashing cameras and designer gowns. Back when she was a young girl in Mexico City watching her mother work tirelessly, learning early that success is never handed to you, it is built with resilience. And after facing the devastating loss of her father at a young age, something inside her changed forever, because grief has a way of either breaking you or building you, and in her case it ignited a fire, a silent promise that she would make something extraordinary out of her life, and she began channeling her emotions into performance, discovering that acting was not just art but survival, a way to transform pain into power, which eventually led her to attend acting school in Mexico and land her breakout role in the popular Mexican teen telenovela Lola, Erase una vez, where audiences instantly connected with her charisma and screen presence. And suddenly she wasn't just another aspiring actress, she was becoming a household name. But even then, she knew that comfort can be the enemy of growth, because staying successful in one country would have been easy, risky. She left behind established fame in Mexico to start from zero in the United States, moving to Los Angeles with nothing but determination, imperfect English, and a dream that many told her was unrealistic, and that move alone defines her mindset, because it takes courage to abandon applause for uncertainty, to trade security for possibility, and in Hollywood she was not immediately embraced. She faced rejection, stereotypes, typecasting, and the quiet struggle of being underestimated. Because breaking into an industry dominated by familiar names and established networks is never easy, especially when you come from another country and people try to box you into limited roles. But she refused to let accents or labels define her range, refining her skills, auditioning over and over again, absorbing every no as fuel rather than defeat, and eventually that persistence paid off when she landed a role in From Dusk Till Dawn, the series, which became her first significant step into the American market, showing Hollywood that she wasn't just a pretty face. She had presence, intensity, and range, and from there doors began to open, not magically, not overnight, but steadily, through consistency and focus, leading to major films like Baby Driver, where her performance alongside established stars proved that she could hold her own in high-energy, internationally celebrated projects. And that film became a turning point because it positioned her as a serious contender in Hollywood, not just an international import but a global actress. And what makes her story powerful is not just the films she's been in like Alita, Battle Angel, Hobbs, and Shaw, and Ambulance, but the evolution behind them, because with each role she carefully reshaped her narrative, refusing to be limited to stereotypes, choosing characters that allowed her to expand beyond expectations, and in doing so she represented something bigger than herself. She represented ambition without apology, femininity without weakness, cultural pride without compromise, and throughout this journey she faced intense public scrutiny, especially regarding her appearance, as media conversations often focused on her transformation and beauty rather than her work, and instead of shrinking under criticism, she addressed it with honesty and confidence, understanding that growth, whether personal or professional, invites commentary. But commentary does not define worth, and in interviews she often speaks about discipline, about mental strength, about knowing who you are, even when the world tries to project its own version of you. And that mindset is what separates temporary fame from lasting influence, because Eiza González didn't just want to be visible, she wanted to be respected, and respect requires endurance, and endurance requires inner conviction. And as her career expanded, she began working with some of the biggest directors and studios in the industry, stepping into larger franchises and high-budget productions, proving that international talent can dominate global screens. And yet, despite the glamour, her path was built on years of unseen effort, language practice sessions, acting workshops, auditions that never made headlines, sacrifices that never appeared in interviews. And this is the part of her journey that inspires most. The invisible grind, the late nights, the moments of doubt where she could have chosen comfort but instead chose ambition, and in an industry where trends change overnight and fame can disappear as quickly as it appears, she focused on longevity rather than hype, building a career that steadily climbed rather than exploded and faded. And this steady rise reflects her personality, strategic, patient, resilient, and unafraid to evolve, because evolution is at the core of her story, from a young Mexican star to a Hollywood action actress, from telenovelas to global blockbusters, from local fame to international recognition, and along the way she became a symbol for many young Latin American dreamers, who look at her and realize that borders are not barriers unless you allow them to be. And that message carries weight in an entertainment industry that is slowly but steadily becoming more inclusive, and she stands as proof that representation is not just about being seen, but about being undeniable, and beyond the films and awards. Conversations, her journey speaks to anyone who has ever felt underestimated, because she embodies the idea that reinvention is not betrayal, it is growth. That leaving your comfort zone is not abandonment, it is expansion, and that setbacks are not endings, they are redirections. And through every red carpet appearance and every new project announcement, what truly defines Eiza González is not glamour but grit, not perfection but persistence, not overnight success but calculated courage, and her story continues to unfold, with each role adding another layer to a career built not on luck but on relentless effort, reminding the world that success is rarely linear, rarely easy, and never accidental. And as she continues to rise in Hollywood, she carries with her the spirit of where she began, the lessons of loss, the discipline of reinvention, and the unshakable belief that no dream is too distant if you are willing to outwork doubt, outlast rejection, and outgrow fear. And that is why her journey resonates beyond film, beyond fame, beyond headlines. Because at its core it is a story about courage, about crossing borders both physical and mental, about believing in yourself long before the world believes in you. And that belief, once lit, becomes unstoppable. And as her name began to echo louder across Hollywood, Eiza González understood something that many rising stars fail to grasp: visibility is temporary, but value is lasting, and if she wanted a career that would not fade with trends, she had to keep sharpening herself in silence while the spotlight shined, because fame can create comfort and comfort can quietly kill ambition. Yet she chose evolution instead, taking on roles that demanded physical intensity, emotional depth, and a stronger screen presence, training for action scenes, refining her accent so that language would never limit her range, studying the industry, not just as an actress but as a strategist who understood branding, longevity, and the importance of choosing projects that elevate rather than dilute your trajectory. And this level of awareness did not come by accident. It was built from years of being underestimated, years of hearing subtle comments about being the Mexican actress rather than simply the actress. And instead of resisting her roots, she embraced them while refusing to be boxed in by them, turning what some saw as limitation into a powerful edge. Because there is something magnetic about someone who knows exactly who they are. And in interviews she often speaks about self-discipline, about waking up every day with the mindset of earning her position all over again, about not allowing past success to excuse present laziness, and that philosophy is what separates those who shine briefly from those who build legacies. And as she moved deeper into high-profile films like Godzilla vs. Kong and continued appearing alongside major action stars, audiences began to recognize not just her beauty but her command on screen, the way she carries intensity in her eyes, the way she balances strength with vulnerability. And that duality became her signature, because real power is not loud, it is controlled. And Eiza González learned to control her narrative in an industry that often tries to write it for you, especially for women of color. And instead of allowing tabloids to define her worth, she redirected attention back to her craft, proving that consistency speaks louder than controversy, And behind every premiere photo and fashion headline, there were hours of preparation, hours of self-reflection, moments where she questioned herself, adjusted, improved, and kept moving forward, because even the most confident people experience doubt, but what defines them is how they respond to it.